Hey, how you doing, everybody? Okay, jumping right in. We don't want to waste any time. Presentation's up. We're rolling. Kurt last week gave us the education rundown on your guaranteed path to success. How cool is that? You got it here out of CFE. Heard it here first. Building off of that today, typically when I'm asking guests to prepare their presentations, let me know what they want to talk about. It's really like pulling teeth, and I gotta be like, okay, no, but really what do you want to hone in on? Not this guy. He was like, boom, 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 boom. 4 things. Here's where I'm at. Here's my career. I'm like, oh, man, that is so refreshing and so nice. Who is he? Senior business and technical leader with over 30 years experience working at 6 different companies as CTO, general manager, CEO, founder, and the like. Somebody who knows fintech as well as just about anybody you could possibly imagine. He's worked around the globe doing different operations for it. Built his company now to 125 persons that he's leading. They've raised over $100-some million. Holds 3 patents, and he's a former board member of the School of Information. Perhaps most importantly, what I want you to understand and know about him, and one of the things that I think you've probably come to appreciate is the pattern and the people who we bring in. They are true Michigan leaders, meaning they care about their people as much as they care about their profits. Whenever all the other tech companies were laying people off and otherwise weren't able to hold on to their folks, that wasn't his story. He held on to them. They didn't lay off any company. They didn't lay off any people. Please help me welcome my friend, your fellow soon-to-be alum, John Macilwaine.
Hey. All right, awesome. Thanks, Eric, and thanks, everybody, for having me here today. I'm super excited to be back. I am sporting my brand new national championship sweatshirt. Let's go blue, first time I've worn it, so yeah. Woo! Yeah, so look, when I came through the college, we didn't have the CFE, the Center for Entrepreneurship, and I really wish we did because I think it's such a valuable way to look at entrepreneur and building businesses. And even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, like the lessons that you learn are hard to come by. You have to experience them over time. And as sort of Eric went through my experience, yeah, I've done all that. But if I went through the school and was able to have those perspectives, I think it would be really great. So I'm excited to be part of the program. This is my 2nd year as a mentor, and I've met some really great students along the way, and thanks for having me, and I hope you enjoy the short presentation today that I'm going to get into. So with that, let me jump into the sort of my entrepreneurial journey, and it really started off at a pretty early age with this. Does anyone know what this is? These guys are awake. This is a computer. It's an Apple computer. It's an Apple II computer from 1982. It's the first computer that I had. It transformed, changed my life for a couple of reasons. One, I obviously jumped into this and started playing a bunch of really cool games, and that was fun. But I was also able to start my very first business. And that business related to one of the programs that shipped with the Apple II in the early days. It allowed you to sort of, as a database, create different forms and type in information, whether it be recipes or task lists or contact information, and then it would allow you to print that out onto a printer. Pretty straightforward stuff. And as I was going through the manual on this particular application, it said that one of the output formats was mailing labels. So you could buy sheets of mailing labels and then print from this application onto mailing labels. And I started thinking, like, who in the world would want to print a whole bunch of mailing labels? That doesn't really make any sense, not very exciting. And then I started thinking, I bet small businesses would have a need for this, because these are really early computers. So no businesses really had personal computers or were using them to run their operations. So I hopped on my bike, I cruised into town, and went into the first boutique shop on the main street. And sure enough, at the front desk, there was a sign-in book, a registration, where customers would put their name and their phone number in, and then they would be in their address, actually, and they would be part of a postcard they would get in the mail for a promotion. And so what I ended up doing was saying, hey, let me take this database, let me take your address book, and I will automate that and print labels for you. And as it turned out, that actually worked. So I sold 12 of the shops in my hometown, got thousands and thousands of address books and names, came back, typed them all into the Apple computer, and started printing out labels. And I charged 15 cents a label for the first label and 10 cents for every additional label. And that's pretty good money when you're 13 or 14 years old, right? I didn't have to mow lawns or cut grass anymore. I could just use the Apple computer to service these businesses. And the lesson was really more about how technology and how computers and innovation can really change small businesses, can help businesses grow, and can help them reduce costs. And that was something that was really eye-opening for me at a young age. And I think it sort of set me on a journey of really looking at different business opportunities, leveraging technology. So that was one of my passions. I had a second passion when I was growing up, and that was in music. So does anyone know who this person is? My kids don't even know, so okay. All right, sorry, no one knows who this is. You know who this is. Okay. This is Peter Gabriel. Peter Gabriel is an English-born rock star who was in a band in the sort of mid-'70s called Genesis. He was the lead singer, but after he left Genesis, he had a solo career. And what really intrigued me by what Peter Gabriel was doing, he was on the forefront of exploring digital music and digital sound samples and the way to use different technologies to compose really interesting music. And so if you listen to some of his albums in the 80s, you'll hear the differences in sound and tone and what he's been doing with music. And that was really exciting to me because I was an aspiring, a self-taught piano, was really interested in computers. And so, what really was able to be done in this area, and Peter Gabriel was really on the forefront. So computers and music were passions of mine. And then I jumped up north to Big Blue. I was accepted into the engineering school, wanting to pursue a computer engineering degree. But I also had this passion for music, and I was looking for how to combine in the educational side sort of computers and music. And at that time, Michigan didn't really have any kind of unified or dual career path or educational path with computers and music. So I had to do it myself. I had to really go in and meet different people and different resources within the university. And one of the themes in this presentation is really about how just amazing the university is in terms of the resources that are available to you, even outside of what you're studying. Chances are there are people and professors that are working on anything and everything that you could possibly want to work on. And so what I did, I ended up volunteering up at the Artificial Intelligence Laboratory on North Campus. And AI back then was not what it is today. There's a lot of innovations going on today, but it was really about robotics and neural networks. And what I was interested in pursuing was how, if we're creating these digital sound samples, which are recording little snippets of sound so that they can be used in recordings, and you have thousands of them, first, how do you store all those digital sound samples? And then secondly, how do you retrieve them in interesting ways so that they can be usable? And so that was just sort of something that I worked with a lot of really smart people up here on North Campus to further that. And then I came into one of the classes that I ended up taking was taught by this person here. Does anyone know who this is? Eric. Are people awake here?
I'm not sure anymore. I don't know.
Okay, this is Professor Elliot Soloway. He's still at the university. He's my favorite professor that I took classes from as an undergrad. And he was teaching a class called software development or application development at the time. And when I was enrolled in that class, I decided to approach Professor Soloway and say, look, I get what the class is all about. What I'm more interested in doing is potentially pursuing this kind of digital sound sample database and query optimization tool. Let's do an independent study. And Professor Soloway is so great, he said, yes, I'll do it, I'll sponsor it, you can do an independent study. And I further convinced him that this is such an audacious project, it should be worth 5 credits, which he also agreed to. So now I've got a 5-credit independent study, and I'm thinking, hey, a 5-credit A is really gonna juice the GPA. That's gonna be awesome. But like 1 month into the project, when it was a little bit slow starting and going through some hurdles, I was like, a 5-credit C is gonna be really hard to recover from. So we kicked off the project, and about the same time we kicked off this project, I wrote a letter out to Peter Gabriel's studio, who you guys don't know, but he's the famous recording musician that we showed earlier. Wrote a letter out saying, hey, I'm doing some research with the University of Michigan in this area of digital sound samples, and maybe you'd be interested, would love it if you were. And about 3 months later, I got a call from the studio in England saying, hey, we are interested in this, we'd love to have you out. So I flew out to the studio and spent the day with professional recording engineers that were grappling with the same problem that I was trying to solve, which is, hey, we have thousands and thousands of digital sound samples that have been recorded over years in all of these different systems. We need a way to consolidate them. And we need a way, once they're consolidated, to retrieve them back so that they can be used in composition, which is great. That's exactly what I wanted to solve. And so we started brainstorming. We started connecting with how do we go about solving this problem? And this was in the field. And then I remember in the afternoon, Peter Gabriel walks in and sits down right next to me and starts talking to me about what he envisions. And what he was envisioning were things like, hey, John, I want to be able to retrieve all of the blue sounds, or all of the red sounds, or all of the warm sounds. I started thinking, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I don't even know what that means. But he knew what it meant. He knew the kind of tools that he needed would allow him to interact in ways to allow him compose. And I think there's sort of three things as I look back at that entire experience, three things that resonated with me. One is like leaning into the university and the resources and the AI lab and the smart people all across this university and the facilities you have that are second to none in terms of your ability to leverage them. And I would have never have been able to go out and sit with someone like that had I not been from the university and worked through this in those ways. But I think the second lesson is for you entrepreneurs is to get in front of customers early and often. They will tell you what their problems are. They will, and by customers I don't mean paying customers. They're not going to pay for anything that you haven't built yet. But people that know what the problem set is. They will offer advice on how to shape your product market vision, your go-to-market, if you will. And they're willing to do that in ways that you could never do yourself. Like, a lot of people have really great ideas, but unless they resonate with the market, with the business, with customers, they very rarely get off the ground. So that was the second thing. And the third thing is take your shot. Don't be afraid to take your shot and get out there and reach out to people that you may not think will respond. And look, I'm not saying like walk out of here and go email Taylor Swift and hope that she punts. That's not what the lesson is here. But it is, if you've got someone that you respect and that you really admire, that you think could help you, and that you otherwise maybe not feel like you should reach out to, go ahead and take your shot. And that's what I did. And I think it's a good lesson, and I hope that you're able to do that. And so just to wrap this up, so I did finish the prototype under Professor Soloway. Got an A in the class, but I decided not to pursue the whole computer database and musical sound sample, because I think at that point the addressable market, i.e. who would buy this, was pretty limited, right? And that's an important thing as an entrepreneur. Like, what am I building and what is the total addressable market, the TAM? And so I thought that was probably not large enough to pursue, albeit a great experience along the way. One of the byproducts of this is that Peter Gabriel and I have remained in contact for the next 35 years. And so every time he comes to San Francisco, he invites me backstage, and this is proof that we've met backstage. This is me and Peter from 2 or 3 years ago. And he's smiling in this picture, unlike the intense picture at the front. So it's been a great experience. And yeah, so that's what happened in terms of that whole entrepreneur experience. So moving on to post-college, so sort of different companies that I've worked at. I think Eric mentioned I've been fortunate enough to have been in lots of small and large companies, and I think there's a good mix of experience that you garner from being in small startups and larger companies that we can get into maybe in some of the Q&A. On the left here, there's a company called, and I'm not going to go through every one of these companies, but maybe the first and the last. There's a company called Lombard Brokerage. So after I graduated, I moved to London for 2 years. Came to the US when the internet was really starting to sort of become something real, and lots of businesses were starting, and I thought that it would have been an interesting idea, because at that point you could get stock quotes on the internet, but you couldn't actually trade stocks. So I took a shot. I called the CEO of this small company in San Francisco and said, look, I think we should talk about how to automate your business, how to put stock trading online and allow you to be more competitive and to kind of go after Schwab and some of the other businesses. And he bit, and we did the project. We built the very first end-to-end online stock brokerage business called Lombard Brokerage. We won 4 consecutive yearly awards for best online brokerage through lots of innovation and lots of hard work. The company eventually was bought by a bigger company in the brokerage space called Dean Witter, who then merged with Morgan Stanley. So I was able to kind of go through that experience of building some technology, applying it to an existing business, working through scale and scaling up that business, and then eventually being acquired and staying with a larger company. So then I left Morgan Stanley and did another startup called MyHomeKey. That startup failed, so I got a taste of failure. It didn't taste very good, but sometimes that happens, and as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of takeaways in terms of what did you learn and how did that happen, and that was a good experience, although I didn't like to fail. And then I worked at, you can see Visa and some of the other large areas of, Eric called it fintech, financial services and technology is really what that is. Coming up to my current position, which is the CEO and co-founder of a company called EHour, which is on the far right. EHour started up 3.5 years ago. It is a amazingly scalable, flexible platform for companies to issue cards, prepaid, debit, credit, either virtual or physical cards, and really allow them to compete in what is a very, very fast-growing business called embedded finance. So it's a little bit complicated. I know a lot of you probably don't know what that means, but we're issuing cards to these businesses that are co-branded that allow them to compete. And so we're 3.5 years in. We've raised $115 million. We're 125 people. We've been through several rounds. We're at about $25 million in revenue, set to double that this year. The story's still being written, but it's been an exciting journey so far, and hopefully you'll be hearing our successes down the road here. So that's where I am now, and we're based in San Francisco and continuing to grow and to work hard in that space. So just a couple of thoughts to wrap it up here. Key thoughts, lean into There's so many resources. There's so many things that you can do. They're available to you that you may not even know. I didn't even know, my first 2 years I was here, how many resources were available and people to meet and labs and work and research, and it's been really amazing, and I think that this is a world-class, obviously, institution, but even externally, this will open up doors for you, and it did for me, and that's really something that I didn't really know, and so I'm telling you, yes, take advantage of it. You're here, it's for your use, you can leverage it, and it is meaningful, and it's unlike any other sort of environment that you'll have, I think, as you progress through your career. Take your shot. We talked about that. Don't be afraid to reach out to people that you admire, respect, a business client, an investor, and you'd be surprised. People want to help. They're not afraid to lean in and to help and to share ideas and brainstorm with you on anything, on any topic, building a business or not. Customers early and often. Any business idea is only as good as the market and the customers that are going to wrap their head around it and help you solve their problems. And as soon as you can get that, the earlier in the cycle that you can talk to customers, the better. And that will help shape what you're working on and help you be more successful. Okay, those are the 3 things. I've got one more fun video I told you I was really interested in computers and music. And so this last one is about innovation. And this is innovation that's happened with a company just recently called Steinway and Steinway & Sons, which you probably have heard of. I'm hoping you've heard of Steinway. No? No. You've heard of Steinway? Yes. Thank you. Yeah, is that Steinway? They're a piano manufacturer. They make the best pianos in the world. And all of the world-class performers, most of the world-class performers prefer Steinway pianos. So there's been innovation there. I'm going to need an assistant here. So Eric, since you're closest, can you come up? So I need to borrow you for a second so that I can show this video, and don't mess this up. We didn't script this. No. Okay, so I'm gonna just really quickly show you how a piano works. So you gotta put your microphone down, or in the other hand, and put your elbow like that, okay? And this is a fulcrum right here. So when I press down here, the elbow goes up, right, okay. Fulcrum? Okay, so here's how a piano, pretend this is the white key on a piano, right, a regular piano. When someone presses down, no, Eric, it's a fulcrum. Yeah, okay, good, okay. Right, presses down. At the back of the piano, there's a hammer that goes up and it hits the string on the piano, and that makes the noise. So a piano is a percussion instrument and a string instrument at the same time, right? So boom, goes like that. You got it. Are you doing it?
I'm doing it.
Okay. Now, what Steinway has done for this, they've innovated in this area of player piano. And by player piano, I don't mean the old-fashioned player pianos that have those, those spools with the holes in it, and they're really, so they don't sound very good. This is real player piano. So what they've done is they put essentially actuators under every single key on the piano that are controlled by microcircuits. And so what they're doing is pushing up here, and that's making the same sound. That was good, actually. Gotcha. Making the same sound, but they're highly, highly technical. So they're able to interpret 1,000 data points per second, so they can do full reproduction of music. Now, why is this even interesting? It's interesting in computers and music because it's the first time where you really can transform a digital signal into an acoustic sound, an analog signal, but an acoustic sound. It's not driving a MIDI file to a keyboard. That's been happening for decades. It's really using technology that ends up driving an acoustic sound, which is pretty unique. So, thank you for the demo. I'm gonna show what this looks like now. So in that innovation, so my son is studying music and technology at Belmont, and I have a Steinway piano. He started tweaking around and downloading a song off the internet, the MIDI file. We wanted to test out whether this would work because it's an undocumented feature. So if you're watching this on video or even in this room, do not do this at home. This could break your piano. But I want you to show what some of the capabilities are for player piano technology, but really more importantly, kind of what doors this opens up for the bridging of digital technologies to acoustic or analog technologies. So let's see if we can give it a go here. It's only a 2-minute video. He put it up on YouTube a couple of months ago. It has 125,000 views. If all of you viewed this, I think he would probably earn about 3.5 cents. So feel free to look at this later. There you go. All right, that's it.
All right. AI's coming for you too, pianists. You're not immune from it. I don't think so. As I'm hearing you talk about this, what's this guy who's in FinTech, Fin Services, talking about music for, talking about computer engineering, but he didn't do anything with that? Who is he? What was he talking about? There's an element there that feels like it underpins the story arc of your career of being naive and not knowing what you don't know, and graduate with a computer engineering degree, but to go into something completely different.
Yeah.
What does it mean? What's the value of being naive? Is there a value?
Yeah, I think being naive is one of the critical ingredients to maybe changing the world, right? And I think that for me on the music stuff, that was a passion that I didn't want to ignore, and I didn't know where it was going to lead. So I kind of explored it and decided that I wasn't going to build a career in music, but technology. And so being naive, I think, is super important. So one of the companies that was on the left was called Lombard Brokerage, and when I started into that field, I knew nothing about fintech, financial services, banking, stock brokerage, nothing. And when I pitched this project to automate the online brokerage, so to me it was because I didn't know, I was naive. I thought, hey, a web browser can sort of create the stock order, and that we'll create an API and we'll send it down to the stock exchange. Pretty straightforward. We can make this thing work. But then as we got into it, we realized, like, well, no, there are no APIs to the stock exchange. That doesn't exist. That's not a thing. So then we started thinking, well, this is a problem. And I think maybe had someone told me before that none of that, that doesn't work, like maybe that would have caused me not to pursue that. But being a little bit naive really made us look at the problem set much differently. Like, what do you mean there's no API? How do the trades happen? Well, someone types it into a terminal. Okay, let's create a virtual terminal and we'll make it look like we're typing, but it's the API that's right. So you start to really troubleshoot and come up with unique solutions when you don't know the limitations. And that's what it was all about in that particular example. And I think that is true in many fields as well.
So the naivete not only comes into play when you're looking at starting a new company, looking at going into financial services, but your advice to them of lean into U of M, access the resources, dive deep on everything that's here with you, feels like it's applicable there too. Yep. You don't know anything about the AI lab? Cool, go check it out, go walk in and learn. You don't know anything about the recording studio? Cool, go walk in and learn.
Yeah.
But then that doesn't stop once you just leave here. You continue that. You knew nothing about living abroad.
Nope.
But suddenly you found yourself where?
I was in London for 2 years, and it's one of the things that I highly recommend if you can, is spending time in a place where you didn't grow up. And I know maybe some of you grew up outside of the U.S. and are here now, so you know what I mean. But for those of you that haven't spent a lot of time globally, I would really encourage you to try to do
Show of
that.
hands, how many people have spent more than 6 months outside the U.S.?
Yeah, that's a pretty good portion.
Better than I thought, yeah. Not bad.
Right, and really immersing yourself. So it's about living there and paying taxes and meeting people and not feeling like you're on vacation or you're there just to study, which is fine. But I'm talking about immersion because that allows you to understand cultures that are different. You can learn the business practices, you can understand the politics, you can understand how to influence, you can understand the value systems. And the world is getting smaller and smaller. I know it's a cliche, but it really is. And as you progress in your career, you will encounter opportunities to work with international. You may be required to work with international businesses or global companies. And I think it's more than anything else. It's just that perspective that came from, at least from my perspective, that came from living abroad and being fully immersed in how other people operate. Really, it's really about that. It's really about that diversity of thought.
Another thing that you're talking about that really has a unique high value to it is this notion of timing. You're coming back over here saying, hey, I think we should try to digitize the stock trading opportunity here and try to connect with an API. That's existing at a time period where the internet is still generally in its infancy compared to the broad spectrum of things. For the students who are out there who are like, well, shit, I wasn't born and I didn't come of age in 2000. I didn't come of age right before social media. I came of age at the time I am now. I'm going to graduate in the mid-2020s. How do they know how to perceive the right timing for either an industry, for a startup, for an adaptation, for an innovation within an industry?
It's a good question. I don't. So my first answer would be you can't control timing, but what you can do is follow your passions and look at where the world is as it overlaps with some of your passions, right? And so now, like, some of you may have a passion in AI, some may not. I don't, but some of you may, because that's a field that's burgeoning right now. And there's a lot of different opportunities there that one could argue will be important or more important in the future. That's not the only one. I think it really comes down to, what do you want to do? Where are your passions? And then looking within that sector for different trends, for different areas where the timing component is not prohibitive. I think any successful business really, or small business growing or startup, really has the three factors, and one of them is timing. The other is people, and the third is what's the idea, like what's the business model. So you have to have all three of those to really go. And I don't think you can control timing, but I think part of that, the awareness of where the world's going, and hopefully you're picking sort of something that's kind of riding the wave, or there's a tailwind.
If you were in their shoes, what's the wave you would get out ahead of besides AI? Everybody knows AI is cool and hot right now. What else?
Yeah, I've been asked that question by venture guys saying, what's the next big idea? And I always tell them, they're like, I don't know, I'm not a venture guy. But I think in financial services and technology, the field that I'm in is going through rapid innovation. It's always innovating. Payments is always innovating. So it's not about, you just look at what Apple Pay's done in the last 10 years. Like now people don't even use physical cards much anymore. And I think that there's always a pocket within a larger vertical like payments where innovation is creating new business opportunities and is saving companies massive amounts of money. And it's one that I mentioned because I happen to sort of have looked across a lot of different areas of payments, and I think that it will not slow down. It's one of the few verticals where the more you innovate, you directly solve business problems that make companies more money or reduce costs. And that's not the case always in other verticals, but within payments it is. So I think that's an exciting one, and I think that we'll see what happens with other technologies. I don't have a list of other ones, but
well, let's unpack that notion of financial services being innovative right now. You're somebody who's at the forefront. You're on the wave of that. One of the notions that sometimes I feel like gets put out there is, well, it's fintech, well, it's financial services. It's not really something that's like driving a huge social impact. There's not ESG. There's not notions of otherwise what we're talking about with improving society around us. What is being done in that realm?
Well, I mean,
What's
how many
going on?
people have used Venmo? Raise your hand. Okay, well, that's Braintree. That was the company I worked for. Braintree and Venmo are the same, owned by PayPal. I mean, you could argue that's not innovative, but it is changing consumer behavior, right? It is changing the way we interact. And every single person at some point is going to conduct a transaction and pay for something, exchange value. And that is what payments is. So whether you're sending your friend money or you're receiving money or you're buying something, it's part of life. And so whenever you're working on a problem set that eventually impacts every single person on the planet, like there's a lot of opportunity there. And I think that those are the kind of big ideas. That's the total addressable market. Like what's the total? It's like trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars globally. It doesn't mean that every single business will be successful, but it's within certain areas that affect human behavior, that affect commerce, that affect how people buy and sell things. That to me, that is what payments is. And it can both be business to business or it can be on the consumer side, and I think there's just a lot of, even in the last 10 years, you've got, Venmo, you've got virtual cards, you've got Apple Pay, you have, different ways to pay for goods and services with cryptocurrencies. Again, I'm not a huge fan of crypto, but that's another thing that's come up, and there'll be more that come up that are sort of big, important waves that may take a lot of time to roll out and to get right. But if you're on the forefront of that, you can be the pioneer that might usher these things in faster, that might be the instigator, that might solve a security problem that prohibits a certain technology or business from flourishing, if that's of interest. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity out there.
So you were at multiple different companies. You watched the waves of innovation come through financial services at those companies. And then a couple years ago, you're like, you know what, I'm going to do this on my own. Launch my own thing. I'm going to start here. Why now? Why high note? Why now? Why that specific niche that you're in?
Yeah, well, when I started High Note, co-founded with my CTO 3.5 years ago, we didn't start off thinking that we wanted to start that type of company. I came out of Braintree, which is a specific subsidiary of PayPal that's on the merchant acquiring side, so it's the acceptance of cards products. But as we got into the research, and again, it's meeting customers, get out there and talk to customers. What problems are you struggling with? Well, it takes too long to issue a card, and there's only one provider. The rest of the providers are legacy banks that are really slow. I can't innovate fast enough because I'm encumbered by legacy providers. And so the idea for High Note around the time that we started it was around allowing customers to move faster and be innovative. And you have to have both. It's not about just moving fast. You can look like everybody else and move fast, right? But it's about allowing them, our customers, to be differentiated, to be competitive, to build their own competitive advantage and not have to come back to High Note for every single feature they want. And so it's thinking about building a payments platform as a product, not as a back-end processor. Because I always want, and I always say, our customers will build better products than we. They know their space, they know what they're competing against, they know their cost structure. At High Note, our responsibility is to have that platform that's enabling, that allows the innovation to occur by them so they can grow faster on our platform. And that's really how we set up the company and how we started. And that's gotten some great, unbelievable market transaction or market product fit that we didn't expect, but we're really now reaping the benefit of as the company continues to scale. And I think it's about, and that's part of timing, right? The timing part was it didn't exist now. There's only a couple providers, huge demand, only a couple providers, and a legacy infrastructure with a huge multi-trillion-dollar addressable market. Those factors together caused us to want to start up Highnote.
I don't think it's a big. I think about where you're located and the community and the ecosystem you're in. Students, give us a little bit of response here. How many of you have a perspective, a strong perspective, of what you think the Bay Area is? Raise your hand if you think you have a sense of what the Bay Area is. Raise your hand if you've spent more than 6 months there. Okay, break it down. Why is the Bay Area something that otherwise fueled, fed your ability to do this, your community to do this, your team?
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of history around the Bay Area and Silicon Valley and just the nature of innovation and startups. And I think that has fostered, even from a generational perspective, that thought process, that value system to proliferate. And specifically, I'm talking about the general open-mindedness to try new things, to take risks, to make mistakes, right? Those are all things that are very highly tolerated and expected in the Bay Area, and they are in other places in the country. So I'm not saying that that's the only place, but once you're in an environment, first of all, that supports and reinforces the ability to experiment and push boundaries and do new things.
And fail.
And fail. No one likes to fail. Like, I'm not a big, failure's great. I don't like it, but you do learn. And I think that part of this process is through learning. But just on that innovation side, and it goes along with trying new things, there's also the broader ecosystem that is putting money into this. So a lot of the large venture firms are placing big bets on smart teams and smart people. And those investments are the fuel that obviously allow these ideas to flourish and to get off the ground. And so that, I think the venture side of the Silicon Valley and the kind of the cultural side of taking risks and pushing the boundaries have really stayed pretty consistent in the Silicon Valley. And that's where a lot of new ideas, again, not the only new ideas, but a lot of new ideas get off the ground.
There's density. There's density there.
And then the smart engineers go there, and their friends are there, and it does create this ecosystem that tends to cater to entrepreneurship and startups and trying new things, all in this sort of one little area.
And one of the things you've talked about this, I think, is such a poignant comment, is the notion of it otherwise creating small and tight circles. Explain what that means.
Yeah, I think the whole notion about sort of what gets things going is like the speed, the pace of innovation, doing things quickly. And if you have a small circle of, if you have an investor and you have your engineering team and you have customers that are all in the same circle, then you can rapidly iterate as you grow your business. You can rapidly pivot. And I think that having that close-knit is important in the sort of the gestation phase of a small company, but even growing beyond that, the network effect that you get in building a business shouldn't be underestimated, right? Because you're invested by a certain venture capital. Well, they have a ton of portfolio companies. Well, all of their portfolio companies can then use your product potentially, or you can cross-market into that, and it creates that. And you just need that to get going, right? It's just about kind of getting going, getting product market fit, continuing to build, scale, and grow from there. And I think that there's tons of support for that in those tight circles in the Silicon Valley, because otherwise it tends to be very hard. You have a great idea, you can't really get traction, the customers aren't there, you can't get an investor to invest fast enough, and so it's like you and another person, and you can't really get anything meaningful done fast enough. And so that's what happens, that kind of burns out if you don't have that support and that underpinning for entrepreneurship. And that's really what I found to be most relevant and in fact enjoyable, being down on the West Coast.
Got you. All right, students, I want to make sure you have an opportunity to ask questions. So if you have one, raise your hand. We'll run a mic over to you. In the meantime, one of the things I want to, John, unveil for them, the notion of scaling, of course, is critically dependent upon the ability to hire.
Yep.
You've been a part of an organization when you're at Lending Club, going from 50 to 1,300 people. Going from starting the company now to 100 people that you've got. What are the most critical aspects that they need to know when they are trying to market themselves as a potential hire out in the world?
Yeah, I think, well, first off, I think people, that is the most important ingredient into a successful startup. Who you're working with, what kind of culture you build, what kind of people you bring into the company. And I think that I'm of the school of thought that people that, when we recruit and we interview, we look for people that are curious, that have demonstrated that they have a bias to action, they want to get things done. It's not about what computer language you know or what exact skill set that you have or what experience you have. It's how you think, how you solve problems, how you work with other people. And yes, you have to deliver, so there's that. But I think in the interview process, we really look for leadership, curiosity, proven results, passion. We want to work with fun people that want to solve problems. We don't even hire people that know payments right now. It's like, what have you done in your career that's demonstrated that you can solve problems, that you're fun to work with, that you can add a different and diverse voice to the culture? And I think it's only then that you really get a good fit. So like I would say on determine what you want to do and demonstrate that you like doing it and why, and that you have experience in solving problems and working well with other people. And it's less about, I did this internship. I know that's important, but it's less about the exact things you actually did within that internship. It's more like you went out there, you did it, you put yourself out there, you worked, you're ambitious, you did certain things, you accomplished things, but now you're ready to take it to the next level. And then it's sort of what can you do for the company that you're interviewing for? It's less about what they can do, it's what can you do? How can you add to the mission, if you will? And I think those are the kind of people that do well at Hideout when we hire.
It feels like underpinning a lot of that is this notion that you don't need to chase the perfect resume construction. Right. You don't need to chase the notion that you have to line up perfectly to this job career arc and path that you think is going to make you hireable. Be genuine, be authentic, chase what you're sincerely interested in, and that will be reflected. That will come out.
Yeah, and you don't have to oversell yourself, right? You want to have a good fit as well. You want to work at a company where there's mutual benefit, and I think that two-way dialogue during the process is even a demonstration of how it would be like to work with you and what things interest you even outside of work. And it's really it's more of a sort of a well-rounded, but it's a leadership type process in my mind. It's not a what programming languages do you know? Like, it's not about that. It's really about how did you learn? How do you want to learn? How do you want to have an impact? And how can we grow together?
Okay. All right, let's get into a couple rapid fire questions here. The number one skill set that they all need to brush up on before they leave?
Communication.
Go deeper.
How you portray yourself and how you work with other people and how you are able to demonstrate your value and how you are able to lead other people requires solid communication skills. And you'd be surprised at how many, I shouldn't be laughing, how many people don't have solid communication skills. And that is, that can slow things down, and it tends to be problematic. And I wouldn't normally say that, right? I'm an engineer at heart. Like I would have said, learn all these things. But people need to be able to communicate, to be able to write documents, to be able to write guides, to be able to exchange information with teammates. Look, we're global now, right? So a lot of people are remote, right? So if you can't communicate very well, that's hard. The team breaks down. And so
what's the number one way they can build that muscle?
Yeah, I think that working, like even in the classroom setting, working on like interpersonal and working on project teams and working on documenting things and going through like, hey, here's the project that I did. Let me take you through it, and being able to message that in an effective forum and take feedback for it. That was confusing. What do you talk, like getting feedback and getting better and sharpening those skills. I think it's practice and it's feedback. And I think that the more you do that, the more you get different experiences and feedback. Because sometimes when you say things, you think everybody understands, but they don't always understand. And taking that feedback and incorporating it back into work style, I think is one way to improve it.
Reaching out to Peter Gabriel.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. If you're going out to the Bay Area for the first time, where do they need to go? What city? What's the under the radar place that they need to go check out?
Like a bar or
Whatever.
whatever.
If you're over 21, a bar. If you're not.
Look, I think if you're going to go out there, you should definitely spend time in the Silicon Valley, so down on the peninsula. So Palo Alto, Menlo Park, Mountain View, Cupertino.
About an hour to the south.
Yeah, it's about an hour to the south. Sand Hill Road. Those are places where there's a lot of it's Stanford's down there, so there's a lot of sort of campusy type things going on. But a lot
Berkeley's got a prettier campus, I'll say that.
Berkeley in the East Bay has a great campus. So there's that, and then I think San Francisco. It's probably no surprise that San Francisco downtown has suffered through COVID. They haven't fully come back. It is coming back now. But there's a lot of commerce going on there. I can feel it. I can feel it coming back. There's now lines at lunch in the sandwich shops now. There used not to be for 3 years. So people are coming back into the office. But it's not like it used to be in downtown San Francisco. But it's definitely a place you should go and visit. And there's a lot of people there to meet and to share experiences. I love the Bay Area. It's sunny there. It's cold in Ann Arbor. It's sunny there all the time. And that's always great. And but it's that combination of kind of peninsula and downtown San Francisco.
So to that notion, final question here: when it's cold next January here in Michigan, what's the prediction for where the Wolverines are? Where's the playoffs?
I mean, isn't this a rebuild year? I don't know. I don't know. I'm reading all this stuff, like the transfer portal. So
okay.
I don't know. I hope so.
It's not back to back?
I'm a fan. I mean, let's go, right? Let's go. Let's go.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great
Thanks a lot.
weekend. Enjoy it.